That's James's meal for today. Grilled eggplant, roasted potatoes, and grilled wax beans. Roasted yellow beets, some corn, romaine lettuce, roasted red peppers, well, bell peppers, and some apples off the tree on romaine, and some chickpeas and tomatoes and shallots. In mine I have a little bit less stuff, but it's still some great stuff. And it's funny, that's what I did to the lemon cakes. I'll talk about that briefly. I went to the Salvation Army this morning to get food, and there's a couple that we like to go on Tuesday because there's a couple there. They're very nice people, and although the food score isn't as rich on Tuesday as Thursday usually, but they're just a pleasure to interact with. So anyway, so we've decided to pick Tuesdays to go.
Yeah.
And anyway, the man, I asked, oh, what are those, the cakes on the shelf? And he said, well, they're the lemon mini cakes or something like that. But he said, what I did this morning is I toppled them all upside down. And he was really apologetic about it. I could tell he felt bad, and I thought, oh well, it doesn't matter, it's going to taste the same. And what did I do? Because my back was sore and I was trying to get the stuff in, and it was hard work for me. And so what I do, toppled it right over on. I guess it's just the way. They always say it always lands jam side down, right? So, yeah. And I mean, it looked a lot better when he had just toppled it over the one time. Now it's just an absolute mess.
No, really,
but James is going to have fun.
It just looks like a Jackson Pollock painting, so it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a classic.
Yeah. Anyway, so James is going to be the one talking to you today. Entirely. And you might have looked at the wax beans and went, oh, Pauline, you didn't trim the beans. And no, I didn't. I figure we can just eat them like this and just toss the stems.
So the other day, I think it was yesterday, I was reading from this book, Contract on America, by David E. Schein. And he was, there's this one section called Jack Ruby's Startling Testimony. It's shocking, it's not startling. That's an understatement. So this is for folks like Oliver Stone. I suspect Oliver Stone is still supporting Putin in Putin's it's paleo-neo-imperial drive to control Ukraine, and really control the world, at least the so-called Western world. Is having a pretty successful time getting Donald Trump back into power. Kind of like power. He'll be Putin's vassal. So we were talking about Melvin Belly. About the music industry, I found out about Melvin Belly in the movie Gimme Shelter. He was helping the Rolling Stones arrange for a misguided attempt at a free concert in the Bay Area in California. It was back in late '69. Melvin Belly was involved with 6 years before with theoretically defending Jack Ruby. This might have been 5 years. 64. Anyway, a little red spider. You know, one of those we lived once.
I hope it didn't end up in my food.
No. Anyway. Belly was brought on into Ruby's case by Michael Shore, a Los Angeles record executive. So it looked as though Belly was involved with music. That doesn't mean he wasn't involved with the mob. The mob has had a long, strong, and smell isn't everything, record of messing around with the music industry. A Los Angeles record executive who was a business partner, a very close associate of Chicago mobster Irvin Weiner. They might have called it Wiener. It's spelled like it's Weiner. Ruby next asked Secret Service agent Elmer Moore. So he was asking Moore to leave along with his counsel. So the Secret Service, he's not even trusting agent who was whatever. The Secret Service is supposed to protect the president's life. They hadn't done a sterling job with John F. Kennedy. Where do you stand, Moore? And then Ruby remarks, boys, I'm in a tough spot. I tell you that. No kidding. As he's facing death penalty. And he's pleading guilty. But he's pleading guilty with extenuating circumstances. He's claiming he was really feeling sorry for the widow, Jacqueline Kennedy. And that's why he whacked Lee Harvey Oswald. That's just a lie. He was involved with gambling in Havana. And he lost his partial meal ticket there when the gambling industry was shut down by Fidel Castro. So he would have been mad at John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy backed down at the Bay of Pigs. When was that? It was 1961. So Ruby soon afterward returns to his original request. Mr. Ruby, when are you going back to Washington? So he's talking to Earl Warren, Chief Justice Warren. I'm going back very shortly after we finish this hearing. I'm going to have some lunch. Wow, here's Ruby's life is on the line. And Warren is, I'm going to have some lunch, like he hasn't lost his appetite. Ruby, can I make a statement? And Warren says, yes, he said. Mr. Ruby, if you request me to go back to Washington with you right now, that couldn't be done, could it? So he's hopeful it could be done, even though he phrases it negatively. Chief Justice Warren, no, it couldn't be done. Yeah, probably not, but...
You've already read all this.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I remembered where I left off.
Okay.
Which was with Melvin Belly.
Sounds the same.
It sounds the same because he keeps on repeating, I want to go to Washington. And I'm hoping this gets through to Oliver Stone and his ilk. People who say the CIA were behind the killing of John F. Kennedy. The CIA headquarters is just south of Washington, across the Potomac River. There's some folks who even say LBJ was involved. Well, LBJ's working out of Washington, D.C. So, yeah, he keeps on saying, take me to Washington, right? Warren, no, it couldn't be done. It couldn't be done. He repeats it because he knows it probably could be done. They actually spirited away John F. Kennedy's corpse for a fake autopsy in the Washington area against Texas law. Texas law required, apparently, they required that John F. Kennedy be autopsied in Texas. And well, I can assure you, fellas, they wouldn't have lost his brain or his head the way the Washington officials did, and the autopsy would have showed that Kennedy was hit from at least 2 different directions. That's why he was taken away to the Washington area. So, like Warren, like he broke the law when he knew what was happening with the commission. The commissioners.
I don't see why that would be the case if
What?
the people in Texas were involved with it. I don't see why they would show that that his head was hit by 2 different. Why? They wanted it to look like Lee Harvey Oswald, right?
No.
Not in Texas?
No. They wanted...
I don't get it.
Okay, so I'll repeat. They wanted it to look like it was a communist conspiracy with specifically Cuban conspiracy to kill Kennedy. Okay? So in order for it to look that way, they didn't want Lee Harvey Oswald, a lone gunman, to be blamed. Okay? They wanted it to look like a huge big hit by communists. They wanted to get the nation literally up in arms against Cuba so that they'd invade Cuba and get rid of Fidel Castro and put the mafia part of it was they wanted to get rid of Kennedy because he was going after them anyway, but also so they could get their gambling operations going in Havana. Now, in the case of the Texans, they just wanted to get rid of Kennedy. Because he was from the Northeast, and he was a liberal and all this sort of stuff. They hated his guts. They would have hated Lyndon Johnson's guts, but Lyndon Johnson came from Texas. He was a liberal too. But that would have been just a step towards getting some sort of hoser in there.
At least he was one of theirs.
Well, you know, he was a bastard, but he was their bastard, right? But that was the least of their worries. They just wanted to get rid of Kennedy. And Johnson might have been more liberal than Kennedy when it came to his stand on racial equality and on welfare, Medicaid, so on and so forth. He brought in, I gather, Medicare or Medicaid, something like that. He brought in the Civil Rights Bill, Lyndon Johnson did, right after Kennedy was killed, and so on and so forth. So their main concern was just getting rid of Kennedy. But they also wanted to get rid of Fidel Castro. It was killing two birds with one stone.
I put lime juice on your salad, but it doesn't look like it helped. The apples are still tarnishing. Sorry.
What isn't that? So the people who wanted to make it look like Lee Harvey Oswald, and this is right away, is people like Lyndon Johnson. He recorded himself. He's talking, I think it's to J. Edgar Hoover. I don't want World War III to start because of this, the assassination. So he's saying, I don't want pressure to invade Cuba. I'm going to shut down this, what looks like a conspiracy theory to force us into going into Cuba. I'm shutting it down. That's why he set up the Warren Commission to frame Lee Harvey Oswald. Didn't make any difference to Lee Harvey Oswald. He was dead already. But even before he was dead, they were getting ready to frame him. That's the feds. So, yeah, you don't do that. You shouldn't do that. But Warren was brought into the picture afterwards. So all the stuff, all the federal officials are trying to make it look as though Lee Harvey Oswald did it. And they're hiding all sorts of facts. They're hiding the fact that Jack Ruby was a mafia guy. They just came out and said, you know, he, as I recall, he's no connection with mafia. This book is just full of stuff. There's 50 pages of his connections with mafia. He was phoning the mafia. He was phoning mafia people. And he already had huge connections with the mafia, but there's a chart in here which shows the rate of phone calls. I believe it's in this book, to the mafia. Maybe it's in another book, to various members of the mafia. I mean, and high up in the mafia before the assassination. It's stunning. You know, like you and I might have run across, just inadvertently, some member of some sort of local, I gather there's at least one gang in town here. When I was working at the cop shop, they were saying that there was no organized crime in Lethbridge, but that was almost 30 years ago, more than 25 years ago. Yeah, maybe it's here. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to have to deal with this right here, so I don't have it offhand. But at any rate, so that's the thing. There are three conspiracies. One's a fake conspiracy to make it look as though the Cubans killed John F. Kennedy. That's to get the nation up literally in arms. So there's a real conspiracy to do that, and that involves the mafia. It involves the Cuban exiles who were right-wingers. Some of them actually were left-wingers who'd been allied with Fidel Castro and his little revolution. And then, like a typical communist, he started, he exiled some of them. He didn't get around to killing them the way that would have been, if they hadn't got out by the skin of their teeth, many of them would have got killed. That's fellow left-wing revolutionaries. Then there are right-wingers, there are elements in CIA who are involved with the Bay of Pigs, people like E. Howard Hunt. Then there are right-wingers, especially centered in Dallas, Texas, guys like oil guy H.L. Hunt and his son Lamar Hunt. There were people involved with the John Birch Society, a right-wing racist society. There are probably Ku Klux Klanners. There's all sorts of people involved in Dallas, in the police, it looks like maybe the district attorney was involved. They had such a big, sprawling conspiracy. It never would have worked hiding it. A smart conspirator, operates on a cell-like basis and doesn't let, too many people know about the plans up at the top. But these guys were so stupid. They had pretty well everyone, and his monkey involved in this conspiracy to kill Kennedy. And even with the mafia whacking people right, left, and center to hide it, it would have come out. Except the government, the federal government, not the local government.
Well, I don't understand why the mafia was killing people.
That's the way they operate. Okay. If you look as though you're going to this is not just with JFK. What they do is, this is why it's an open conspiracy. They don't bother really hiding what they do, because if you know what they're doing, and you go, okay, I'm blowing the whistle on you guys, and you say, what they'll say is, you're not going to get around to blowing a whistle because we're going to blow you up, or we're going to whack you in another way, and even more importantly, we will kill your loved ones. So that's why Jack Ruby was so frightened. You see, that's why he wants to go to Washington. He's going to blow the whistle on the mafia, and he'll still be pleading guilty, right? But it'll be a conspiracy charge. Now, there would be the possibility, like if he could go into witness protection, and he might get a reduced sentence or whatever. So that's maybe what he was figuring. But you see,
what's the benefit if you know the mafia is going to kill you anyway?
They'll kill his family. Okay? Kill his family. I think he actually talks about it to Warren. That's the thing. They will kill whatever it takes in order to get you not to testify against them. That's why they generally, guys like Al Capone, what did they finally get him for? Tax evasion. But he was going along killing people, having people killed, so on and so forth. And he got away with it. They get away with it because people are scared to testify against them. When they're put into witness protection, they corrupt officials, so they'll find out where the people are, and then they'll kill them. Even the ones who are going to take the risk, and take the mafia on, they get killed.
But his family would be killed anyway then. Why talk? don't understand.
So they could go into some sort of thing like witness protection.
Okay.
Okay. That's why he wants to go to Washington. He doesn't want to be in Texas because he knows if he stays there and he blows the whistle there, he's going to get killed. He knew the police were corrupt. Why? In here, they document how he was a fixer with the police. He was the point man for the mafia in arranging corrupt deals with the police. He knew how corrupt they were. That's why the first thing he says in this thing is, I want Sheriff Decker out of here while I'm talking to you. Sheriff Decker was corrupt. He had mafia connections. Eh? So it's important to get that clear, right? He wants out of there, and he eventually died. I guess it was in Dallas or in Texas. A couple of years later, it was cancer, but I'm sure back then he was complaining about injections they were forcing him to take. Well, what were in those injections? Presumably cancerous cells. He was objecting to them. He didn't know what was in them, but he knew that he was susceptible. There are a good many things involved in that room. It couldn't be done. It couldn't be done. So he repeats it because he's kind of trying to persuade himself. There are a good many things involved in that, Mr. Ruby. And I put there, I bet. And what are they? Mr. Ruby asks. Pray tell. What are they? Ruby continues with an extended but futile argument to persuade Warren to take him to Washington. So again, there's the repetition of take me to Washington. Warren's incredible responses will be considered shortly. Although Ruby fails to sway Warren, he does put on the record exactly why he cannot tell the truth in Dallas. Gentlemen, my life is in danger here. Okay? Not with my guilty plea of execution. I don't know what he means to say by that, but he is under stress. Do I sound sober enough to you as I say this? His life is in danger in Dallas. Chief Justice Warren, you do. You sound entirely sober. Mr. Ruby, I tell you, gentlemen, here it is, Pauline. My whole family is in jeopardy. My sisters, as to their lives. Okay?
What a mess.
That's a mess. His whole family is in jeopardy. He'd like, I suspect, all of them to be put into witness protection by the federal government. Now, he doesn't really deserve to have his miserable life saved. He was involved in this conspiracy. He was an integral part of the conspiracy to kill John F. Kennedy. When Ruby finally sees there's no hope of going to Washington, he briefly drops all pretense.
You're going to love this cake. It tastes like it's made for a kid. It's so sweet.
Okay, yeah, that's good. He plunges in by naming an organization to whom he had no direct allegiance and from whom he had least to fear. All right, this is Ruby. There is a certain organization here, presumably in Dallas. Chief Justice Warren, that I can assure you. What? He doesn't know. What's he talking about? There's a certain organization here, Chief Justice Warren. If it takes my life at this moment to say it, and Bill Decker said, be a man and say it, there is a John Birch Society. So yeah, he's afraid of them right now in this activity. And Edwin Walker is one of the top men of this organization. Take it for what it is worth, Chief Justice Warren. Who's Edwin Walker? The Warren Commission eventually said that that Lee Harvey Oswald tried to kill Edwin Walker before John F. Kennedy was killed. A member of the John Birch Society, presumably, according to, and he's afraid of him. So he's, I guess, from Texas, Edwin Walker, and he was a former general, and I think he was dismissed by Kennedy. He had animus against him. So Scheim is saying he doesn't have to fear much from Edwin Walker. Say what? You see, Scheim has this. He's hammering the mafia thing. He has very little to say about almost none to say about CIA involvement or other people's involvement. Very little to say about Cuban exiles' involvement. And sometimes I think that this is actually a CIA cover-up. In other words, okay, yeah, it was a conspiracy. We're not the CIA, but we're going to clear the CIA indirectly by having it all blamed on the mafia. The mafia was definitely involved, but the CIA elements in the CIA were involved too, and there were right-wing elements like the John Birch Society that was involved. So when this guy says he doesn't have much to fear from this organization, get off of it, Shime. This actually clarifies one of the things I wanted to say, which is Shime hammers too much on the mafia connection. It's almost entirely the mafia, according to him. No, it wasn't. There were lots of people involved, and the John Birch Society back then, if it still exists, it was and is dangerous. So he actually mentions Edwin Walker. Now understand, this isn't a little conspiracy theory. Like Edwin Walker wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald didn't make an attempt on his life. Jack Ruby actually says that there's some involvement of Edwin Walker. Okay?
You have 3 minutes or
3
something?
minutes.
2 minutes?
Okay, so we'll go
3.
through a little bit more. So he's mentioned Edward Walker, and it mentions the John Birch Society in connection with Edwin Walker. I think Edwin Walker just, I don't think he even got shot by someone. He just staged this little attempt at assassination. Unfortunately for me giving the people the opportunity to get in power because of the act I committed. So, has put a lot of people in jeopardy with their lives, and eventually including RFK, I put it here. Don't register with you, does it? No, I don't understand that. Oh, he would understand. That's Warren. He'd understand what's going on. Would you rather I just delete what I said and just pretend that nothing is going on? I wouldn't indeed. I am only interested in what you want to tell this commission. That is all I am interested in. Mr. Ruby, well, I said my life. I won't be living long now. I know that my family's lives will be gone. When I left my apartment that morning, and Warren says, what morning? Sunday morning. Sunday morning, Warren says. By his blank response to Ruby's indication of conspiracy and his sudden curiosity about Ruby's resumed alibi, Warren cuts off further meaningful discussion about the assassination. During the remainder of the hearing, however, Ruby slips in some significant disclosures and other digressions. Then it's not digressions, really. The story is a digression. Ruby wants to get to the heart of the matter, the heartless heart of the matter. Then toward the end of the session, Ruby engages in extraneous and at times disjointed discourse and otherwise attempts to prolong the hearing. He said, how can I get this guy? I'm hanging on to him by a thread. For example, Chief Justice Warren addressing Commissioner Ford, that's Jerry Ford, the incompetent, later became president, vice president, first under Nixon and then president when Nixon resigned. Congressman, do you have anything further? Mr. Ruby, you can get more out of me. Let's not break up too soon. This behavior is clearly understandable given Ruby's several explicit statements expressing fear of being killed shortly after the interview. One example is this remark. Mr. Bill Decker said, be a man and speak up. I am making a statement now that I may not live the next hour.